Well, all right. Well, good evening, folks, and welcome. This is the Sacred Voices open mic that happens every fourth Friday. It is a fourth Friday. My name is Gio. I'm filling in for the host today, so I'll be emceeing. Before we say anything else, I'd like to point out the fact that we don't have very many people on the sign-up list at the moment. We just have one person, and I'm not much of a poet. I'm a musician. I do have some poetry that I will read, but if any of you guys have anything that you write that you would like to share with us, we encourage you to get your name on the sign-up list up there. This is a youth-centric event, but obviously all ages are welcome to sign up. It's a drug and alcohol-free environment. We do not actively censor people's work, but also since there are younger folks in attendance, we just encourage you to use your best judgment as to what kind of content is appropriate to share. We are a nonprofit, so we appreciate all the support. The easiest way to donate would be through Venmo, which is at Sacred Voices. Or you can talk to Jenny. She's over there. She'll help you out. We also have a donation box as well. This event is being streamed live on Facebook. It'll be available on the Sacred Voices Facebook page. We also have an Instagram page as well. We appreciate all the tags that we can get, all the publicity that we can get. Yeah, we also have Jenny is also our vendor today, and she's with Duality Beadwork. So be sure to check out her work over there as well. Now, as far as the poets, since we don't have very much of a turnout, we can encourage longer sets, maybe even up to 10 minutes, about 3 pieces, 10 minutes of material, and then we'll have our feature at the end of the night. I mentioned that my name is Gio. I'm primarily a musician, but I used to write. I'm trying to get back into writing. Coincidentally, before I was asked to host last night, I wrote a poem. So I'm going to actually share this poem. This is, as I said, I'm a musician, so some of my poems that I write are about music. This particular one I thought of as I was trying to play a wooden bamboo flute that I've been playing around with. I was just playing with it, and I was just impressed at the fact, I mean, this is just an impressive thing about all instruments, but they're so precise. Like everything about them is crafted so that they create just the right pitches when you hold those keys down or the frets. And those are measurements that have been passed down from generation to generation, but somebody had to figure them out. So this is what this poem is about. You hold a wooden flute as you ponder how such remarkable craftsmanship could come to be. You play a few notes, and you understand what you must know before you can fully appreciate the existence of this angelic instrument. You remember the frustrations of your ancestor, hundreds of discarded flutes, the hours spent blowing melodies, painstakingly listening for just the right set of pitches. You remember the triumph that became sweeter every time the way became passed down to a new generation. Every generation improved upon it, century after century, into the new millennium. And now you hold before you this perfectly crafted instrument. You blow a few more notes. The room is filled with lightness. As you ride the music, you finally understand that there is no need to continue pondering, and you can give into the clear lucidity of creating beauty without thought. You understand this every time you play, but you forget it shortly after you stop. Maybe one day you'll learn how to always remember. You can remember at any time if you want to. Thank you, folks. And I'm going to read one more here. This one is called I Want to Set Free My Heart. I want to set free my heart. Sometimes it feels like I've collapsed inward. The rest of me, like shackles weighing it down, as if to protect it from the inevitable. Get out of your own way, I hear periodically. I want to set free my heart. I want to open up and let the rest of me stretch outward from west to east, from south to north, vice versa, and everything in between. I am free. Thank you, folks. That's all that I have for now. We're going to hear from Josh up next. Let's give it up for Josh.
Hello, everybody. How are you doing tonight? My name is Josh, and strap in. I'm going to be riffing for about 2 hours. So everyone get ready. I have nothing prepared, so we'll see how this goes. I'm just kidding. I wanted to read some poetry that I've written. I lived abroad for a little while, and when I was living in France, I wrote some poetry, and then I wrote some poetry when I was here in the US, and I wanted to write a little bit about the differences, my emotions between both. And so here we go. This first poem I wrote when I was about 20 years old, and I was back in my parents' house during a break. And I was walking home. I would stay up very late, and I was walking home very late at night. And I wrote this about my childhood home. There's a light on by the porch step as the breeze rolls in. Footsteps approach the door, memories and cracks of pavement, staples and remnants of dirt. There's a light on in a house that sleeps, weary eyes close, blankets over heads. There's a light on as thoughts engulf, living effigies of rest, as lions search for sleep. The fence we built, that tree we planted, summers in warmth and summers in shade. The tree stands strong. I wonder if my roots will ever take hold. There's a light on. Thank you. This is a poem I wrote about poetry nights in general. I loved going to poetry open mics at the Mercury Cafe, and this one is dedicated to the poets of the Mercury. I sat in a crowd of sparsely occupied chairs of people. Busy, fucked up, and beautiful, we spilled blood like buckets, exercising our pain away like fairy-toothed demons from us. Some shared hurt, others proclaimed love. I sat between, wondering who I was. I drove home and sang a French song with an accent. I laid in a bed too small as ice cubes clink calamity. I wonder why we hurt so bad, love so earnestly, and falter so readily. I'm still breathing, my heart beats for a reason. Maybe God put me here, or maybe I was formed in the clay of weary traveling gypsies. All I know is life is far too complex to be so simple. And I love my friends. We're busy, fucked up, and beautiful. Thank you. So I'm going to read this last poem. This one I wrote when I was coming back from a trip. I was in Sweden for a short amount of time, and I was traveling back, and I was in the Charles de Gaulle airport, and I was taking a train back home. I caught the last train, and as I was sitting there, I saw some tourists, and I just wrote a little bit about one of them that caught my eye on the train station. There was a guy I once knew. He would sit on the steps outside my apartment complex and smoke cigarettes. Menthol cigarettes, to be exact. I tried to talk to him, but he always seemed to be enveloped in sadness, much like I was at the time. He seemed to me another classmate, but I wonder where he is now. I wonder where he is, or maybe still on that step, forever 22, forever a menthol cigarette in his mouth, and forever slowly fading into oblivion. I don't know what made me think of this memory. I think it was the scruffy facial hair and lonely look in the eyes. I was in the train station in Paris, eagerly waiting my train back to Rouen, and I saw an American tourist. I saw the same sad look in his eyes. I was tempted to approach him, ask him how he was. I did not, as I felt social norms prevented such a behavior. I don't know what makes me think about these things, but I enjoy the little journeys my mind takes me on. I saw that look, and again I am 21. I'm in a snowy apartment complex in Aurora. I'm walking back after a run, and he is standing there staring into space. A hand on a leash taking his dog out. I am there after a glance, a journey of years and miles, and heartache. After a simple glance, time travel is possible. Thank you very much.
And that is Josh. Let's give it up one more time for Josh. All right, and we're going to try rolling the best that we can. Up next, I actually want to invite Aston up to the stage so that he can tell us a little bit more about the organization. Let's give Aston a good hand.
You guys are tall. Hello, everyone. My name is Aston. I'm on the board of directors for Sacred Voices, and we've been here since April at Denver Open Media, closing in about 6 months now or something like that. But anyway, throughout this renewal that we've been going through, trying to bring ourselves back to the peak of where we were before, back when we were known as Cafe Cultura, it's been a long and difficult journey for us, but we're here now. We have a new website, new internet presence, new people coming in every week. And after these shows that we have, I always get people coming up to me and say, like, I really appreciated having a place like this where we can go, where the community can gather, and it is just a really meaningful thing for them. And it's a meaningful thing for me as well, because having an opportunity like this for the community is such a great thing. And we're not done. We've got a lot more going on. The main thing that's happening right now is workshops. We are going to be doing poetry workshops for all skill levels, all ages, anybody who's interested in workshopping poems they already have, maybe writing something new, if it's something that you've never done before, or if it's something that you're very well familiar with, it will hopefully be of use to you. Those are going to be starting in October. We have one on the 11th and one on the 18th. Those are both Fridays. And we have some wonderful facilitators who will be here in a little bit, actually. We have some people performing over at the Botanic Gardens right now for another event. And once they're finished up over there, they're going to come back here. And they're going to be the facilitators for those workshops. And I'll just run through real quick what we do in this. We try to get people in touch with themselves to really figure out, what it is that makes you want to be a poet, makes you want to write poet, makes you want to create, and how to bring out that sacred voice in you. To get them to talk to each other, to talk to themselves, figure out what it is about them that they want to create. What is that? And after that, we have them do a free write. And they will just write as much as they can for as long as they can. Try to go writing words without stopping entirely. And once they do that, it really allows you to open up your mind. When you do a free write and you just keep going, it's an amazingly cathartic experience, and it allows you to access parts of yourself that you weren't able to before. Once they've done that, that's when they break off into small groups. It can be intimidating to be in a large group setting if there are 10 people all trying to write poems all together. There's a weird, innate competitive aspect to that, even if that's not it at all. When you get into groups of 3 or so and you're talking intimately within a group, it becomes a lot easier to say, well, here's what I like about your poem, your experience. Here's what I find interesting about it. Here's what I think you should add or take out of it. And what we do in those groups is the 3 of them together write a poem, one line at a time. Everybody has a piece of paper. They all write one line. They rotate the papers. They do that as many times as it takes until we have 3 finished poems. Once we do that, we go through and we do some technical lessons on poetry, as much as it is becoming in touch with yourself and figuring out what it is about you that makes you want to write. There is also, it is a craft as well as an art. You have to learn things about it in order to do it. And then once we have that lesson, we have the final write, which is just an individual, straightforward poem. You write one poem about whatever you want about yourself, and you write it. Nobody else helps you, and you hopefully leave the workshop with something that you wouldn't have otherwise written, something that is a result of that unique experience. And that whole process is discovering in yourself what makes your voice sacred. And that is where the name of our organization comes from. So that's what we have coming up next. That's what we're looking forward to. And I hope that if any of you are interested, that you will sign up for these. We have a limit on the number of people that can be in them just to not overwhelm everybody who's participating. We have a limit of 10 right now. If you want to register, you can talk to me, you can talk to Jenny. You can go on our website and register for those. But for now, I'm going to invite up Gio again, unless Josie has something to perform. Okay. Thank you all for listening. I'm going to invite up Josie to share some poems.
Everyone, hello. It is bright up here. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm gonna perform 3 pieces that that I wrote kind of in a specific order. So hopefully you'll kind of get that. And I'm gonna dedicate all of them to my baby over there, who her name is Metzli Sochi, and she is gonna be 2 months old very soon. So this is kind of following the journey of when I was pregnant, and then birthing, and then now almost 2 months postpartum, and what I'm kind of feeling and experiencing. So it's very different than a lot of the stuff I normally write, but I'm really excited to be on this new journey as a first-time mother, and really thankful for my baby daddy over there as well for the support. So hopefully you all enjoy. So this first one is, I wrote it actually back in May. So I was due in late July. So I was pretty pregnant at this time, like 7 months pregnant, I believe. In time, mi vida divina, when you so choose, my bones will spread open and my flesh will cradle you. Fire and canto will welcome you. Friends will surround you. You will dance out and join us here as my hips bend to drum beats. Melodies joined in sacred circle, I will birth you, but you, my little seed of revolution, have already birthed a mama. Our hands will join long after our hearts have. We will have our first kiss. I commit to keeping your heart and making room for you to grow, fly, create, just be, and you already are the greatest love story ever written. Nuestra creación, nuestra salvación, nuestra bendición, nuestra revolución. So that's the first one. Thank you. And this one is about my actual birthing experience. So, just as I dreamed, you split my bones open, made these rivers run red, and circled flesh and fire. And then, as my body burst into constellations high above the cantos and smoke offered, and a new moon kisses the cheek of a rising sun, I breathed into my womb and you inside her. I give myself permission to birth you. I give myself permission to birth you. I give myself permission to birth you. I gave myself permission to birth you. And then you landed earthside with roaring power. You erupted like the homelands of your Tatsin and became a ritual offering of earth, waters, air, and fire colliding. And then, when you opened your ojitos, I saw myself in their obsidian glow and remembered that darkness of night always welcomes morning light. My little portal of memorias antiguas, a smoking mirror of immortal strength. You are an altar of love preservation, as immemorial as time itself. Pampani mitzlasochi, ikanochi no yolo, since always and until forevermore. That's my second one. Oh my gosh, I'm emotional. And then this last one I wrote a few weeks ago, actually last week, as I was just reflecting on my life. I have been loving, praying for love, loving some more, making tough decisions in order to keep loving, choosing love, and then having love choose me. I have been believing with everything in me that love is real, that love is here to heal. This complicated journey of loving has allowed me to remember that there are tough, ancient, life-saving lessons I still need to learn and unlearn and relearn. I know these truths are exactly why Metzli was born with obsidian eyes that look like mine, so that I can be reminded of the beauty of darkness and appreciate its limitless depth, so that I can cradle a mirror and see myself clearly every single day, so that when their moon eyes glisten, I remember that love created them, that love guided them here, that love became them. And so that for the first time in my life, and in the most authentic way I have ever known, I can learn to love the reflection as genuinely as I love them, so that I can learn to love the reflection. Most vulnerably, I know this truth is exactly why Metzli was born with obsidian eyes that look like mine, so that with all the love I can ever create or conjure, looking deep into my baby's eyes, I can surrender. Love, this is my surrender. Oh, Mateo, thank you. That's all I have for you today.
Let's have another hand for Josie. And it looks like we have more performers rolling in. Up next, we're going to hear from Charlie. Let's give it up for Charlie, everybody.
Thank you. Wow, this is Tom. How's everyone doing? I just came from a different event. I was 20 minutes away by car. Parking was a fun adventure. All right, let's see. Give me a quick sec to recollect my thoughts. And hydrate. Yeah, I'm not doing that poem. I just did that, so. All right, we're going to go with a new poem that I already had written, but I've never performed, so all y'all get to see it for the first time. If you haven't already guessed it, I'm Mexican, Mexican-American, Chicano, whatever title that you want to fit me into, but I'm brown at the end of the day. And I was inspired to write this poem after being on YouTube, like any millennial, and I saw an ad, and it was an ad for, I guess, fundraising for the border wall down south. I was like, okay, YouTube, you know my search history. It is not involving you know who. But anyway, so this is where that poem stems from, and let's see how it goes. Aren't you an American? I mean, my parents always had it planned out to raise a family in El Norte where streets are laid in gold, but there's no such thing as corruption like in nuestra tierra natal, or so they thought. You don't look the part. I mean, I don't know what you mean by that, honestly. I wasn't handed any script the moment I was born, just a plain old tiny tracking certificate that has the same 10-digit code branded across my chest as a certified verification that I'm not a part of this dangerous invading force. You're an anchor baby then. What in the world does a ship have to do with what I got going on? The closest thing I've been to an ocean is my bathtub, and I've swam in that one. So I'm just big boned. But damn, Becky, I'm not the size of an anchor. You see, this taste of volatile hate hasn't been a recent creation. Since the birth of this great nation, people like my siblings and I, we don't fit into a niche status quo, having been sat precariously on death row. We don't look like or even talk like you, messing up your picturesque monochrome landscape where we are the heathens intruding onto your stolen native land. You treat each other with, who treat each other with dignity and respect. As you can tell, I'm still a little bit delirious, so cut me some slack. So, dignity and respect as you send out the hounds intruding our very homes to simply inspect, only to turn a blind eye and fail to detect the gentrifying ripple effect that leaves us out on unfamiliar streets where we used to meet and greet, breaking bread. You see, It has become a white man's paradise where they threaten to break our heads with another 9mm bit of lead. I'm not a criminal if the only crime was breathing the same toxic air you spew out, especialmente cuando hablo en otra lengua, porque para ti no soy americano. I'm not a rapist if the only act of rape I've been a part of was your violation of my innocence thanks to your criminal justice system. I'm not a bad hombre if the only act of bad behavior was continuing to exist and persist that you treat me as an equal. I'm not a drug trafficker if the only drugs I push are the whitewashing norms that I need to take daily just so you don't feel uncomfortable as I walk outside my own home. My face, caked in blood, salted with tears, shows no fear to the lies you clutch onto ever so dearly. I'll only say this once to make myself very clear. My light skin, golden hazel eyes, rainbow lengua, and wild midnight burnt hair is here to stay. That's the end of the first one. Can't, another one? Sure, why not? Yeah. Give me a quick sec. Not that. Different folder. I'm really organized, as y'all can tell. Extremely organized. This one. This one's a good one. So, to give a little context, also to buy some time, so this next poem was actually inspired from, I guess it's still recent, from the protests that were held over in Aurora at the Geo facility, where, if y'all didn't know, it's a facility slash, well, no, not slash, it's a concentration camp, let's be honest. So I participated there and I spoke and I was their impromptu interpreter. Really cool little event. And then after the whole thing happened, I was inspired to write this piece. It's never been performed either. So please forgive me if I am tongue-tied because I'm still a little bit in the recovery mode right now. But nonetheless, let's go. Should I ever be booked? Don't try to avert your eyes and tell young kids not to look. Should I ever be booked? I want you to memorize my face, my wild cabello, my sun-kissed exterior eyes and all. Drink horchata and aguas frescas in my name as you pour out the spiked Kool-Aid Lady Liberty gives out so freely. Should I ever be booked? Tell people to come visit if they can. Share the happiness we had and will have. Yell loud enough that the sky shakes and rumbles. Should I ever be booked? Don't waste a single lágrima on me. Don't make me into a trending tweet with a hashtag Free Charlie. Don't paint me as a perfect icon set in stone in history like all the greats from Muhammad Ali to Benito Juarez. Should I ever be booked? Teach the young kids, up and coming, to see past these rusty iron chain lies around my wrists and ankles, to value every imperfection a person has instead of being afraid of them, to run to their own beat on their own 2 feet and not have to worry about whether or not their future is met with a body filled with lead or behind these same cold steel bars I see through. To especially not trust white gloved sterile smiles as they try to caress and touch their hair and skin to see if some of that magic rubs off on them. Should I ever be set loose? I will continue doing what I do best, expressing myself in lyrical verses and slam about the true reality that comes living in this life called purgatory. And that's the second one. Woo! Another one? Are we good? Another one? Another one? All right. Woo. All right. We got multiple folders. The question is picking the right ones. Let's see. This might take a little while. You know what? I think I got one. This one is very ironic. This one's about writer's block, so I got performer's block right now. Go figure. All right. People would be surprised as to the number of times that I fall back in love with my venomous ex. The reason my eyes suddenly get new Gucci bags underneath them. The reason that my joints begin to creak and snap as I try to find the motivation to even be present. The reason my usual go-to happy attitude leaves the building on vacation, leaving as I begin to wallow and weep. First name writers, taking possession of my spare time as I start to think how I could do better to make this relationship work. Last name block, my own make-believe 1,954-mile barbed wire fence wall with spray painted letterings with blood sprayed painted on the same recycled World War II helipads meant to inspire fear within me whenever I try to see over. It's easy to say just right, but harder to do when you use your own personal trauma to paint a picture that cleverly uses the unique Spanglish lexicon I use, needing to briefly step out of reality and face those historic travesties again and again and again and again, baptizing what you call a savage soul to be aborted one more time, seeing through my heavy-set hazel eyes the crimson mist that tans my pale complexion to match the same beet-red anger Make America Great hats embolden their owners with, needing to feed their unnecessary vile hunger to drag a person like me down under. This is the usual routine I go through when it comes around with that block again. Mr. Writers, already coming strapped with 2 sets of jagged glass tap shoes caked in my crimson tears as I begin to hear the shards again enter my skin, grating my very core como si fuera de queso. Y te preguntas por qué sometimes I recycle common ideas in my poetry. This is why you can see the creative flow I go through is anything but a giant labyrinth, twisting and turning, churning my insides like butter as no other. That's the third one. Woo. Woo. Jesus. Another one? Sure? All right. All right. Ay, ay, ay. Is this one good? That one's unfinished. Let's see. We'll go with this one. I'm pretty sure this one's unfinished, but we'll improvise. I'm told my voice carries weight, where when I speak my words, crush and shake into different tongues, I know, as you sit there wondering how bad it is to be in this world simply because you have dark hair, but your skin is not called to question like mine. I'm told my voice carries weight, jangling in the air, tumbling and rolling through its 96 V6 Eclipse engine as you sit there taking offense to what exists and is brought to everyone's attention, as hesitation lies heavily justifying your procrastination to the realization that this nation wasn't meant for our creation. I'm told my voice carries weight. I'm told it is filling a diversity quota. I'm told it's ethnic. I'm told what people want to hear, but my voice comes from my brown body, the one that is alien to you, the one that is an anchor baby, the one that is another suspect on your police lineup. My voice carries orgullo. And that was the fourth one. Yeah. Woo! Oh, lordy lord. Another one? All right, we'll buy some more time. Let's switch it out. Yeah. You want to take the mic for a little bit so I can drink some water?
Let's have it one more time for Charlie. All right, folks. So while we wait for our feature to get here, I was trying to think of what I could do to entertain. Like I said, I'm usually a musician, and I don't have any of my instruments with me. So I could beatbox, or I could do something a cappella, or I had this fairy tale in my head. My niece was visiting the country recently. I'm from Eastern Europe, the country of Georgia, the Republic of Georgia. That's on the coast of Black Sea. It's just above the Middle East there. She's 3 years old, and she would always be like, Gio, tell me a fairy tale, tell me a fairy tale. And I would make something up on the top of my head, and then I'm like, well, this is not fair. Like, she can't tell that this is bad, but I mean, it's bad, and I don't want her to deal with bad fairy tales because stuff like that is formative for kids. But at the same time, a lot of Georgian fairy tales that I'm familiar with anyway, kind of spread very toxic traditional values that I don't really want to spread to my niece, but she doesn't speak English, so I needed to find something in Georgian. And I found one that I really liked. It's still one of those fairy tales where certain characters get turned into rocks, so it's not, it's not without flaw. But I liked some of the messages that it was communicating. So I'm going to share that with you guys. So somewhere in a village there was a man who has worked very hard his entire life, and he was nearing his old age. And he decided that, he couldn't really do very much anymore. So all that he really wanted was just a songbird to sing songs to him outside in the tree. So sure enough, there was a songbird in the tree, and he went out and he wanted to pet the bird. And then as he went to pet the bird flew away. And the man was very disappointed. Now he had 3 children. So he had a young child, a middle child, and an older child. So he decided to let the younger child stay behind, but he sent 2 of his older sons to look for the bird. And the 2 sons, they go into the forest, and they're moving, and they have their supplies with them because they figured finding one bird in a big forest may not be an easy task. And sure enough, they can't find the bird. So they sit down and they decide to make a campfire and have some of their supplies that they brought, some of the food. So while they're eating, a fox with its little fox babies starts approaching the boys, and the fox says, "That's some tasty food that you have there. I'm really hungry, and my children are really hungry. Will you please let me have some of your food?" And the boys are like, "No, in fact, you look more delicious than the food that we have." And they had a dog with them, so they send the dog to attack the fox. Now, the boys didn't know that this fox had magical powers, and the fox snapped its fingers, and all 3 of them, the 2 brothers and the dog, just turned into rocks. So meanwhile, at home, the old man is waiting for his sons to return, and they're not coming back, and it's nighttime. So the next day, he gets a little worried. So he tells the youngest son to go look for the older sons, and maybe they can find the birds together. So the youngest is like, "Sure, I'll do that," and he takes his dog with him, and they're going. And sure enough, he's not able to find the boys because they're rocks, and how is he supposed to know that his brothers are rocks now? So when it starts getting darker, he makes his own campfire, and he starts eating some of his supplies. And the fox starts coming up to him, and he sees the fox, and he says, "Oh my God, you look so pitiful. You look like you haven't eaten in days. Come here, you should have some of my food." And the fox says, "I would love to have some of your food, but I'm afraid of your dog." So the youngest says, "Oh, that's okay. I'll hold the dog, so you'll be safe. And you'll come and you can have your food." So the fox comes with its fox babies and feeds its children and eats the food and says, "You're a really kind human. Humans aren't usually kind to me." And the boy's like, "Well, we all have to help each other out, right?" And the fox says, "What brings you into this forest anyway? Didn't you know this forest is cursed?" And he's like, "Well, my dad is really fond of this bird, and he wants this bird to sing to him every day until the day that he dies." And this bird flew away, and it flew into this forest. And the fox says, "I just so happen to know the bird that you're looking for. Unfortunately, that bird lives in the royal orchard now. And you have to be really careful when you go in there not to pick any of the fruits, even though they look delicious, because the royal guards will catch you and bring you to the king, and the king will punish you." So the boy's like, "Well, that's okay. I'll be really careful." So he goes and he finds this tree. It was a pear tree. And it's a pear tree, and all the fruits are all magnificent. And sure enough, he sees the bird. So he climbs and he grabs the bird. But then he just can't help himself. These pears just look so juicy and delicious. So he picks some of the pears and he starts eating them right there in the orchard. And sure enough, the royal guards spot him, and they come and they take him away to the king. The king says, "How dare you trespass on my pears? You must be put to death." And the kid says, "Oh, no, don't put me to death. All I wanted was to grab this bird. It's really important to my dad. I really want to go back home to my dad and give him this bird." And the king says, "Fine, but you have to do something for me. There is a beautiful woman that lives on an island in the middle of this really big lake. I need you to go and bring me this woman because I'm in love with her and I desire to be with her." So the boy says, "Sure." And he goes, and the fox shows up, and the fox builds this nice boat, and they sail together, and they go find this island, and sure enough, on this island is this really beautiful woman. And the boy goes up to the woman and says, "Fair maiden, I must bring you to the king because this is what I must do in order for my dad to have this bird." And the woman says, "I'm not going to go with you because the whole reason why I'm on this island is because the king is a mean jerk. He treats everybody badly, and he treated me badly, and I wasn't having any of it. So now I'm here on this island, and I'm really happy. So yeah, you can't take me. I'm not coming with you." So the boy's like, "Man, well, I really respect that, but at the same time, I really want to see my dad again." So the fox says, "Oh, I'll help you. I'll turn myself into the beautiful woman, and then you can take me, and then you can go back to your dad." And sure enough, the fox snapped its fingers and turned into the woman. The boy took the fox, who's disguised as the woman, to the king. The king is happy. He says, "Now we're going to have our wedding." But then during the wedding, and meanwhile the boy got away, and during the wedding, somebody looks at the bride and says, "Well, the bride is beautiful, but she has the eyes of a fox." And then the king gets angry. "How dare you say such things about my bride?" And then everybody starts getting angry and fighting. And while everybody's fighting, the fox turns back into a fox and quietly escapes. And meanwhile, the beautiful woman fell in love with the youngest son, and they both go back to the dad together, and the fox snaps its fingers, and the rocks turn back into the brothers, and they come back as well. But when they come back, they see that this boy is in love with this beautiful woman, and they're about to get married. The dad is really happy, and they say, "How is this possible? We're the older brothers. We're supposed to get married first. How is it that the youngest brother gets to get married and we're not getting married?" But the fox was watching this whole time and saw these evil brothers trying to sabotage the wedding, so it snapped its fingers, and the boys turned into rocks again. And the youngest boy and the beautiful woman and the father lived happily ever after, and every day you could hear the beautiful songs of the bird outside of their house. All right, and I hear that our feature is here. Up next, we're going to hear from Manuel. Let's give it up, everybody.
Hi, how are you doing tonight? So I'm going to read, yeah. That's how I feel. It's Friday, right? So I've got a couple of short stories that I'm going to read. Just to give you a little context, I'm a writer. I'm from Denver. I've been working on a short story collection based in the north side called Norteñas. And these two are both stories from that. And the first one's just an excerpt, and the second one's the full thing. So, when was the last time you talked to Hugo? Graciela had always loved to ask the tough questions in cars. No chance for escape. It's been a minute. The last time I saw him had been at La Raza Park. I'd been driving by our old apartment on 42nd and Navajo, a relic of Northside past, set amidst the new builds lining the block. It was like an atomic bomb had been dropped in our neighborhood, and that decaying brick building was all that was left. A shadow burned in the walls of our memories. As I made my way down to 38th, there he was, sitting on the stairs at the temple in the middle of the park. I nodded to him, and him back to me. I pulled over, hoping he'd come to say what's up. Instead, he waved and walked away. I drove off. "You know, he asks about you all the time," Graciela said. "He's always dropping by." "Really? Why?" "You know, Hugo. Just saying what's up." Graciela let the silence linger. I knew what was coming. "You still mad at him?" "For what?" "You know what." I let out a deep sigh. This wasn't how I planned to spend the car ride to Miguel Montoya's funeral. The hot car had become even more unbearable due to the intense heat of her questions. and the reminder that summertime was riddled with the remains of our friends. Some summers you can feel it hanging over you, the general malaise of the city beating down on you. You can feel it in the air when that late spring snow melts away. Feel it when the grayish snow gets stuck at the edge of the street. The flowers begin to bloom, your first bee sting of the year. Feel it when the lightning crashes down in the neighborhood park, splitting the oldest tree in half. Feel it in your arms, your chest, your veins, the tears running down your face every morning, allergies, or some deep buried mierda that spills over and out. Summertime, for better, for worse, it's here. You feel it? My brother Hugo used to say that all the time. Feel what? I'd ask, and he would stop, look around, up and down the street, to something unseen in the distance. Bro, death's in the air. You don't see it over there? It stopped. Look, right in front of our house. You can see the ghosts if you just look hard enough. That's so stupid. Who gave you that idea? I burst out laughing. Shut up, fool. It's real. I've seen them. They walk through the hood at night. You're high, Hugo. Trying to get me to believe this nonsense? It's not just me either. Graciela has seen them too. She just said that to be nice to you. Nah, there's something about her. They hang out around here just to be close to her. Someday you'll see Luis. They're waiting for you. Miguel had died of an overdose in a recliner right in front of his TV, found by his teenage son early one morning. We hadn't been close in years, not since he started slinging coke, mixed with spells in and out of Denver County Jail. As we entered our 30s, funerals had become more like family reunions. Most of us couldn't afford to live in the North Side anymore. It was on burial days that the North Side could still feel like the North Side. We all thought we'd be friends forever. We should have known better. We were young and naive, the years ahead of us seemingly endless, our actions unhinged, wild, unnecessarily reckless. We couldn't see anything 5 seconds ahead of us. Most of us had spent the past 25 years looking back, survivors, waiting for the ever-present darkness to swallow us. We all used to go swimming in the Platte. The whole group of us, Hugo, myself, Graciela, Miguel, Araceli, and her brother Craig. I can still see Miguel's face and his pierced eyebrow, a piercing that he gave himself at a party on a dare. None of us could really swim, but that didn't stop us from playing in the water. I remember us laughing as Hugo jumped from the pedestrian bridge into the shallow water, laughing as our bodies hit the water, spraying up on the onlookers, standing on the edge, laughing so hard that it sounded like wailing. 2 women on the nearby bike trail stopped to see if everything was okay. We couldn't respond. All we could do was laugh. This was before Craig got shot up outside that old grocery store, the one on Tejon that used to be Shudos, for a pair of J's and a Chicago Bulls starter jacket. This was before our laughter turned to sobs and tears, before I learned that Hugo had a gun. We had stripped down to our basketball shorts to swim, and as we put our shorts and shirts back on, I saw Hugo twisting and turning, trying to shield something from our view. It slid from his hands, and there it lay before us, naked. What's that? I asked, a mix of excitement and disgust in my question. Nothing. Don't worry about it. Hugo was rarely confident. Like me, he was riddled with guilt, trying to live up to our parents' goals. This wasn't the Hugo I knew, talking back to me. Where'd you get it? I asked, this time pressing him a little bit more. Don't worry about it, okay? God, you're so damn nosy, you know. Whatever just hurt you to let things slide? He walked away, turned his back on me. We rode our skateboards home in silence. I thought about letting Mom know, but she wouldn't have talked to him about it anyway. That's the curse of being an oldest son. Separate worlds began to sprout up. The gun merely a measure of the growing distance between us, 2 little skater punks from the North Side. Hugo stopped going swimming with us and started hanging out with Carlos and Jimmy, our next-door neighbors. Jimmy and Carlos ran the hood, all dressed in their Nebraska hats and hoodies. They were NSM for life. Hugo eventually got the XIV tattooed on his hand. Then it happened. Abuelo died, far too young, cancer spreading from his lungs, metastasizing. That was the word the doctor used. All the way to his brain. We sat with him in a hospital room as he took his last gasps, squeezing my mother's hand, and then he stopped. Abuelo had spent most of his life working, for years, as a migrant farmer, moving between Texas and Colorado, finding seasonal work wherever he could. When he and Abuela settled down in the north side, my aunt helped him find a job near her house, at the Keebler factory, baking. He always smelled like fudge and cookies every time I went in for a hug and kiss. Abuelo was the glue that held the family together. When he passed, the cracks began to show. And I should have known. The signs were all there that a fury was on the horizon. The hailstorm that knocked out our windows, the glass strewn across the living room, the power knocked out for days, the car alarms blaring in the distance. Hugo's graduation party had to be canceled. Our hope had turned from a celebration into a dour mood. He never got to celebrate with us. One night I found Hugo sitting in Abuelo's old lazy boy talking to someone. I tried to overhear the conversation but could only hear Hugo crying. I came out and told my brother, "You okay?" I asked him, putting my arm around him. "Abuelo's waiting for me." "Waiting for you? Why you? You ain't special." "Because he said it's almost my time." "Hey, I'm heading out with Graciela tonight. You should come with us." "Nah, it's okay. All you do is sit in the house since Abuelo died." Silence. I left him alone and headed out to meet Graciela. As I walked the sidewalk in front of our house, I saw a fireball drop from the heavens. A flame tear the sky apart, a nighttime vision of a sacred heart. "Hugo says that you can see ghosts," I asked her. "Sometimes, yeah." "How?" "It just happens. I don't know how or why." "That's whack. I've never seen a ghost." "It'll happen. Someday. You'll see." It happened for the first time on the night Hugo was killed. I'd been at a party when we could hear it, gunshots, 7 or 8 of them, merely blocks away. We dropped our drinks and scattered, most of us running away from the noise, while others ran towards it. In the distance, I could hear a boy scream. Graciela and I made our way back to our duplex, jumping fences, running through bushes, stopping. We were breathing so hard we couldn't cry. That's when we heard it, rustling in the bushes. "Luis, you've got to help me." It was Hugo, but it wasn't him. He was shivering, shaking, helpless. "What's wrong?" "I can't help you. I think I'm dead. You have to take care of me." So that's the end of my first one. And that one was called "Some Summers They Drop Like Flies." And then this is called "A Violent Noise." You have always been traveling on the edge of the wind, even before you were born. A speck of dust thrust across the universe by the explosion of SN 1054. A sky illuminated, blues and greens dancing in the night, traveling at light speed into the eyes of women and men, transformed onto paintings on walls. Light beyond light, a new beginning, life, death, and the cosmic, all wrapped into one. A trail of you, stardust, aged for perfection, eras universal. A painting on a wall in a canyon you visited as a child, your hand perfectly aligned with a hand on the wall. You felt like you had been here before. You placed your hand against it. The rock pressed against your hand. A few grains of sand knock loose. Nothing is eternal, and even fewer things leave more than an echo. Your mother, you heard her in the distance calling your name. You closed your eyes, hoping to disappear, but she found you. Her hands imprinted upon you, her fingers leaving traces like birds' wings on your shirt. You've always been moving, hard to pin down, like neurons shooting, faster than light, firing on full across the pathway of a brain, nonstop, since before you could even walk. Full strides, longer than your little legs could manage, much more than you could take. Full on sprinting, the blood of the Rara Rumuri running through veins, pushing your muscles for miles at a time. running out that door after the argument with your mom and dad, racing the cars down the street. If you had wings, you would have taken flight and moved away. You ended up at the park down the street, swaying back and forth on a swing, watching the changing of the sky from blue to orange, purplish pink. What was the argument even about? You walked home, your path lit by stars. You've always been prone to outbursts, your mind filled with wisdom from los antiguos, trying hard to escape from your heart through your vocal cords into the world. At times, frustration, a violent noise, bursting forth into the world. You've been blessed with un regalo y la lacra. One morning on your way to school, a group of girls were waiting for you. Laura had been spreading chisme amongst them, telling them that you were trying to get with Julian, Ramona's boyfriend. The girls pushed towards you, and you threw your backpack down. You don't remember the fight, only the guttural screams you let out. You've always existed, in a way, always been around. A genetic memory come to life, a story that was passed down. Your mother's thick hair, father's smile, grandfather's sense of humor, and abuela's smarts. You've always felt like you were thrust upon your familia, especially your mom, who barely survived you. She took every opportunity to remind you of this. As you held her hand, you taking your first steps, smiling at her, a giggle escaping your lips, the sour look upon her face, as you held her hand, trying to comfort her when your abuela didn't wake up that one morning. Your hands in her hair, your tears and gasps filling in the blank spaces of the room, her eyes burning through you. Mientras sostienes tu mano, her turquoise ring sliding off her middle finger, patches of once was full, luscious black hair, waves that you used to swim across in your bed at night to put you to sleep. Your arms doubled around her body, the cancer eating away at her. Look at you. ¿Cómo puede ser mi hija? She whispers while trying to squeeze your hand with all her might, and what you had hoped were not her final words. As you gave the eulogy at her funeral, you were reminded of her omnipotence. The power cut out, the microphone turned off. Once again, she had silenced you. You remember, vaguely, when you were 7 or 8, sitting on your father's lap, as he tells your brother, Cuídala, porque serás responsable de lo que hace. Watch her. You're responsible for what she does. You were fast, curious, and impulsive. That same night, you saw your father packing up a mochila, preparing for a meeting. You never asked him where he was going or who he was planning to meet. You'd always known that this comes to an end. You should have seen it coming, but your body was 2 strides ahead of your mind. Your first brush came as you went for a bike ride. Your brother in front, leading you down 32nd Street. Moving between the sidewalk and street, the click-clack, click-clack, click of your spokes. Him glancing over his shoulders to make sure you were following. His hair flapping in the wind. The polyphonic melody created by your 2 laughs morphing into one. In the distance, you saw him, a white man, a man, pale with shining, not green, not blue, eyes blocking your path. You shouted to your brother, causing him to swerve and fall off his bike. You glanced up again, and the pale man wasn't there. What was that? Why did you do that? You didn't see him? See who? The man in the suit. I don't know what you're talking about. He looked around, up and down the street. You helped your brother brush off, headed home, while tears streamed down your face. You looked back once more, and there he was, the man, smiling at you. You clearly remember, irrefutably, your brother inviting you to a party when you were 15. This shit's going to be off the hook. You in? He said. Claro que sí, you said, because you were always down for some pendejadas, always looking to get into something stupid. And you knew he would always protect you, like he did, from that pale man. The 2 of you walked down Lipan, making your way slowly towards 38th, the sidewalks covered in snow, the 2 of you choosing to walk down the freshly plowed street instead. You couldn't risk getting your Saturday finest dirty. A car moved toward the 2 of you, flashing their headlights, trying to blind you. Carlitos waved his hands in the air and laughed. It's Beto. You weren't laughing. There had always been an ever-present fear surrounding you since that bike ride. You'd never really talked to Beto, but Carlitos, you had always called him Carlitos, while everyone else called him Carlos, later just Los. I told you all about him. Beto's parents had owned a chain of restaurants throughout Denver, 6 or 7 of them, a rarity for someone from your neighborhood. And Beto, he always had the best toys. His parents, the coolest rides. Carlos had been there at Beto's 10th birthday party, the night that Roberto Sr. had killed his wife, Senorita Carmen. The kids had all been outside, a bounce castle in the backyard, a handful of them playing catch with a Denver Broncos superstar, whom you later found out was a frequent customer of Roberto Sr.'s other business. When the shots rang out throughout the neighborhood, your mom and dad ran out of the house, down the street in search of the gunshots passing by you, leaving you unattended. You waited, hours or minutes, bouncing your ball, waiting for them to come back. Your dad carried your brother home, a stream down both of their faces. Had your father ever cried before? Your mom sat on the curb, watching as the cops pulled up and arrested Roberto. As they took away a body on a gurney, you still bouncing the ball next to your mother the whole time. You remember the picture of Senorita Carmen upon your family's ofrenda, dressed the same color as the cempasúchil, both popping off the shelf. Following Dia de los Muertes, your mom would let you take some of the flowers down and let you drop them off a bridge, an offering to those who had been forgotten. You and Carlitos would walk down to the rail yard bridge off of 46th and drop the Aztecs marigolds on the backs of passing trains. Carlitos makes his way into the street, towards the driver's side of the car while you wait. Beto and Carlos laugh and shake hands. Carlos talks longer than he needs to. You could hear it. The whoo-hoo of the siren clicking off and on. The lights flashing as the cops turn down the street, illuminating the vapor of your breath moving in slow motion across the air. Quetzalcoatl flowing in the darkness. What are you guys up to? Says the officer, his flashlight scanning across Carlos and the boys in the car, their silhouettes shouting out to you for their help. You remember temporary paralysis, your body unable to move. The second officer slowly gets out of the car, his flashlight mounted to the top of his gun, drawn, fixed on you. You've always known the man would find you, because he'd always been there, always waiting, always present. Siempre ha tenido una cantidad de tiempo finita, and there he was. The second officer yells at you, asking you to get out of the way. Carlitos moves towards you, telling the officer, she's okay. His head turns to you, always looking to let you know that things would be okay. Then he falls to the ground. Your ears ring, your heart so loud that it blocks out as you hold him in your arms, trying your hardest to squeeze life back into him, to see his eyes recognize you again. You scream, your eyes shut, as one of the officers shouts at you. Shut up! Shut up! He tries to pull you away, your shirt covered with the remnants of life from your brother, but you struggle to hold on. You hear a man shouting, what have you done to that boy? And the officer lets you go. You look around, neighbors standing on their porches, cell phones in hand. The police helicopter floats overhead, the sound reminding you of a hummingbird, fluttering and quivering. One night, near Carlitos' birthday, you dreamt of a field covered in cempasúchil, all different colors, radiant like the sun. You walked along the field and laid down. When you awoke, you had turned into a flower, all the colors combined, perched on a hilltop. A tiny hummingbird approached, its wings vibrating and pulsating. It landed on you. Thank you.
And let's have another round of applause for Manuel. And I believe that is it for us tonight. Thank you guys for coming out and for sticking around. This event happens every fourth Friday. We will be here next month, and everybody have a good rest of the night. Thank you, folks.